In this video, we will be demonstrating how to set up the equipment and the tissue for the neuromuscular junction practical. On the bench in front of you, you will find stimulating electrodes for the muscle and for the nerve, a transfer pipette, a pair of forceps, a 50-gram weight, a match, some plasticine, fine scissors, and two 20mm syringes with drawing up needles attached. You will also find a large beaker for liquid waste, as well as 3 retort stands, one for the nerve stimulating electrode, one holding a horizontal tissue bath with a pulley down one end, and the other holding a force transducer attached to a micromanipulator. Also on your bench is a gas manifold to provide 100% oxygen to your tissue bath. Since your tissue is submerged under Ringer's solution, the partial pressure of oxygen is much lower than if the tissue was in air. To combat this, we must provide oxygen in this preparation. Feel free to arrange the equipment on your bench in whatever way you need to perform your experiments. To set up your equipment, we will first of all attach the muscle to the tissue bath. To do this, first of all identify all 3 pieces of cotton coming from your tissue. You will find that there is one piece of cotton attached to the sciatic nerve, one piece of cotton attached to the Achilles tendon of the muscle, and one piece of cotton attached to the bone that the muscle is attached to. Note, you will need to be particularly careful with the string coming from the sciatic nerve. The sciatic nerve is particularly delicate and can be stretched and damaged in this preparation. Try to always be mindful of where the nerve is and never put any tension on this particular piece of string. Once you have got your tissue sorted out, place it carefully into the tissue bath as shown here. First of all, take the string attached to the bone of the preparation and pass it around the steel rod on the left-hand side of your tissue bath. Once you have done that, wrap the string around the match and then roll the match down towards the tissue bath in order to tightly wrap the string and hold the bone tightly down to the left-hand side of the tissue bath. Hold the match firmly in place with your piece of plasticine. Next, carefully separate any spare thread from the nerve and from the muscle, and cut the spare thread so that it doesn't get in your way. Be extra careful that you do not crush the nerve accidentally when you are doing this. Now we need to pass the string attached to the Achilles tendon down the length of the tissue bath to the pulley on the right-hand end. It can be fiddly, but just avoid all of the electrodes and the other metal bars so that the string can arrive at the pulley unimpeded. Now we need to attach this string to the tab of the force transducer. Feel free to adjust your force transducer so that there is enough slack in the string to enable you to do this. As there will be quite a bit of force being applied to this string, it's a good idea to secure the string with at least 3 knots. Now raise the force transducer to put some tension on the string. As you do this, you will probably need to make sure that the string stays in the pulley. Also, position the force transducer so that the string is vertical. Now we can fill the tissue bath with normal Ringer's solution. You can use the normal Ringer's solution in the little beaker that the tissue came in for this purpose. The volume of the tissue bath is approximately 15 mils. Use the 20 ml syringes with the drawing up needles in order to quickly change the solutions in your tissue bath. I would recommend keeping one syringe for normal Ringer's solution and one syringe for your treatment, thereby preventing cross-contamination. Now that your muscle is in place, make sure that you can access the nerve, which should be coming off the bone end of the muscle, and make sure that the nerve is immersed in the normal Ringer's solution so that it doesn't dry out. Next, check that the stimulating electrodes are touching the belly of the muscle. We can now attach the muscle stimulating electrodes. These are the ones with the hook electrodes down one end. The connectors down the other end of this cable are called B and C connectors. Attach the B and C connectors to the output terminals of the power lab. You attach B and C connectors by plugging them in and then turning the collar clockwise. You should attach the black electrode to the negative terminal and the red electrode to the positive terminal. And while we're here, we will plug the 8-pin plug from the force transducer into channel 1 of the input panel of the power lab. Note how the hook electrodes are exposed by pressing down on the plastic clip. Take these hook electrodes and attach them to each of the stimulating electrodes touching the muscle. It doesn't matter which order they go in. To set up the nerve stimulating electrode, attach the electrode to the remaining retort stand using the boss head clamp. And then position the electrode so that it is near where the nerve comes off the preparation. When you need to use the nerve stimulator, you can then drape the nerve over the stimulating electrodes using the piece of string attached to the end of the nerve. If and when you do this, keep the nerve moist during your experiments by dripping some of the solution from the tissue bath over the nerve using a transfer pipette. Lastly, we need to add the oxygen tubing to the tissue bath. You can either add the oxygen tubing from the pulley end or from the plasticine end of the tissue bath. If you add the tubing from the pulley end, you can often slide the tubing underneath the metal bars or the unused electrodes. With the tubing in place, adjust the flow of oxygen so that you get a steady but gentle stream of bubbles. If the oxygen bubbles are too rough, they will cause the solution to splash everywhere and will also disrupt the force readings of your muscle. You can also attach the oxygen tubing down the plasticine end of the tissue bath. To do this, remove the plasticine and slide the oxygen tubing underneath the match and the metal rod holding the muscle to the end of the bath. Make sure that the match hasn't become loose, then hold both the match and the oxygen tubing in place by replacing the plasticine. Then adjust the flow of oxygen to create a steady and gentle stream of bubbles. During your experiments, if you need to change the solution in your tissue bath quickly, one person can draw the existing solution out of the tissue bath using their 20 ml syringe. And then a second person can be standing by to add the new solution using the second 20 ml syringe. When changing solution, it is advisable to change the solution several times in order to wash the bath and the tissue and completely remove all traces of the previous solution. Running the new solution across the tissue when adding it to the bath will also help to do this. Lastly, you will probably notice that some of these tissue baths sometimes leak. If this is the case, then just add a container of some sort underneath the bath in order to catch the drips. Your equipment is now set up and you are ready to start up LabChart in order to get your first response.